I'm Roberta Colosino, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And if you have found me tonight, then you must be on my Facebook group, 11 Lakes Stamper, where I come to you every Wednesday night with free classes and card tutorials and sometimes other items. Tonight, in fact, we're making a gift box along with 2 cards. Just as I was about to go live, my whole screen went crazy and said that it was updating my browser, and what it was showing was not the thing that I use as a browser. So I had to shut it down, restart it, and I don't think I'm actually too late, all things considered, just a couple of minutes. All right, so I've got some news for you tonight, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So I will put the camera down. Give me just a second. There we go. And then there's always some kind of an adjustment to be made. Well, yeah. We don't need you seeing all the messy stuff over there on the other end of my desk. That's all the stuff that's in front of me that I like to be able to reach in a hurry if I need it, but you don't really need to see it. Okay, so there we go. I'm at the moment questioning whether that's my current host code or whether that's my current host code, but today is the last day of July, so it might be a moot point, and they don't typically take away the host codes. So I'm going to say that either one of these might work, but I feel like that's probably the current one, the one up here that you're looking at. Let me just refresh my screen, because again, I'm not seeing that I'm here. I know a couple of people have already let me know that they're going to be watching on the replay, and that is fine. It's a nice night. They were talking thunderstorms, and it rained quite a bit earlier, but right now it's turned into a very nice evening. Okay, so as I was saying, I think this host code here is the correct one, and if you're on my group, you can always find the host code up at the top under Featured. That's where I pin things that I want you to see throughout the month so that you don't have to go scrolling all the way through a bunch of posts and whatnot to find what you want to find. So if you happen to be making a purchase today, and I know this is the last day of July, but I will remind you that this is the last day that you can earn bonus days coupons. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out in the comments or send me a private message. But basically, for every $50 you spend, you earn $5 in a coupon. It's US dollars. The coupon is not an actual piece of paper that they send you. They will send you an email with a coupon code or codes embedded in the email, and you need to save that, print it out, write them down someplace. Don't lose it, because those codes you need to copy and paste or hand put into your orders. But that ends today. However, we just found out a day or two ago that beginning on August 6th, they are going to be having their annual, sometimes twice a year, but usually just once, Designer Series paper sale. And this list that I have shows all of the Designer Series papers that are available, and I will post this. So I'm trying to see what's not available. That always strikes me as being more important to know, is not so much what is, but what is not available. So it's looking like what's not available are the 6x6 packs of all of the color families. So the in-color families and the neutrals, the brights, the regals, and the subtles. Those are not on sale. But the Bright and Beautiful is on sale, and that paper was, we used it last year as well with the, oh boy, what was that set called? With the balloons. Yeah, it's not coming to me right now. But anyway, it's just really, it's a fun card, or a fun piece of paper for making birthday cards, children's cards, and so on, but certainly for anybody. Countryside Inn, which is returning. That was in last year's catalog. It was very popular, so that's returning, and that's for sale. The Country Lace DSP and the Country Woods DSP, which were part of a mega suite with 2 different bundles. They're absolutely beautiful, and you might recall I used those in a card last week, the card with a diagonal on it. Then there's this Full of Life Designer Series paper, which is really full of life. It's just really bright. It looks like watercolors and color swatches and whatnot. It's lovely. There's this Lily Pond Lane, which goes with a duck set. So if you know anybody who's into ducks, members of Ducks Unlimited and so on, this might be the paper for them. It's not doing anything for me, I have to say, but whatever. Mediterranean Blooms is gorgeous paper, and I think it's really pretty paper to have whether you like the stamp set or not. The Perennial Lavender, which was carried over and was a very popular paper, especially if you're a purple lover, as I know many of my customers are. Take to the Sky, which is also great for masculine cards and kids cards, and again, not necessarily to go with the stamp set. It's got images of clouds in the sky and like old biplanes and single propeller planes and things like that. Thoughtful Journey, which is kind of watercolor wash on one side and scenery on the other. To Market, which has things from the market, so it has shopping bags and it has flowers and fruits and vegetables and things. It's kind of fun. Unbounded Beauty, that was part of a suite, and that paper is also very pretty, very floral. Wildly Flowering, 12 by 12 paper, which has all of the in colors from last year. They're still in though, they're still available. And the Winter Meadow 12 by 12 DSP, which was in the holiday catalog last year and is carrying over this year. It's just beautiful. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, but I will post something about it. And it's the last day for my calendar, but I will post a new one. And I just want to let you know that only one person took advantage of the ability to earn a free gift by reading my calendar and seeing some of the hidden messages that are in there. So just thought I would mention that to you. All right, so we are using tonight the Blueberry Bunches bundle. Actually, it's not a bundle, it's just a stamp set. There's no punches and there are no dies. So if you're going to use this in a certain way, you would have to fussy cut, but you don't have to use it in that way at all. And I'll show you ways that you can use it without coloring if you're just not a coloring kind of person. It's kind of similar to a celebration set that we had called Blueberry something, probably 3 years ago now. And that came with a really nice DSP. So the DSP, there is no DSP that goes with this, but I forget what Blueberry Bushel falls under the color. Blueberry Bushel is a Regal or a Bright. I think it's a Regal. And so you could get that DSP to use as a background or not get any DSP to use as a background. Honestly, you could use whatever you like. So what I did with it was I played around a little, and I sort of made my own DSP. You've seen me do that before. I call it DIY DSP. So that's not really what the first card I'm going to show you is about, but I will show you what I did. So just picture this stamped, and I stamped it in basic beige, so you really couldn't see the lines too well. And then it's stamped all over an 11.5 by 12 sheet of paper, and then cut up into the dimensions that I needed for the various projects that I was making it for. So that's what I did. But let me tell you, it took me at least an hour to color all of that in, and I know not everybody's into that. I used the blends. It would have taken me less time had I used the colored pencils, I believe. And it would have taken a lot less time if maybe I had used the sponge daubers. I'm not really sure. Or another alternative would be just to not color it at all. So that's actually what I'm going to show you now, is that alternative. So using nothing but the Blueberry Bushel ink pad and a piece of crumb cake cardstock, I made a card. So for those of you who are just not fans of coloring, and I have a few in my group that do not like to color too much, I just took the Blueberry Bushel and I used these two stamps right here. I'll turn them over so you can see them a little bit better. I used those two stamps and just stamped all around. I did a little bit of overlapping because I didn't want too much empty open space. So that is all I did for that. No coloring whatsoever. So I know some of you would like that a lot. And then I have a white piece for the liner for inside. And then using the deckled rectangles, I think I used the 4th and 5th largest deckled rectangles. This is a piece of the Blueberry Bushel paper, or the Blueberry Bushel cardstock. All right, and that's all I'm doing. And then this was on basic white. And yes, I did color this, but if that's all you had to color, that wouldn't be too awful, right? I'm going to go with that wouldn't be too awful. I know, not everybody likes to color, and if you don't, then that just might not be your thing. But there are definitely other things that you could do with it besides coloring. So just a reminder that the alcohol markers, which are our blends, They do bleed through, so don't do this on a good tablecloth or a good table, because they are permanent. So even if it soaks through onto a wooden or even a, you know, kind of a Formica table or countertop, jeez, it might permanently damage it. And you probably don't want that to happen, I'm guessing. So I'm just going to pop this up with some dimensionals, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I've got my iPad out here just in case I need it. There was something I thought I would need it to make reference to, and no, I'm not sure what that was. I think it might have just been the DSP sale before I was sure that I had time to print it out. Alright, so we're just going to put some of these dimensionals on here. Get that out of the way for a second. So I hope everyone's doing well tonight. Like I said, the weather's kind of taking a turn for the better. I feel like we're finally getting summer. I know we had some really hot weather at the very beginning, but then we still had so many cold nights. Anybody having problems with their vegetable garden not growing particularly well, or with critters eating their vegetable garden, like the whole thing? Yeah, as I am, and I'm not quite sure what to do about it. Okay, so I'm putting it that way. I feel like that's the way it goes, that this way, I don't know that there's a difference. I just know I like it better that way. So you do you. Like I always say, whatever looks best to you, that's what you do. So that's just a pretty simple front. And I thought about it, and I just decided that I really didn't want to put this sentiment anywhere. I was going to cut it out with a punch or cut it out by hand. I wasn't sure, but I like the front of this just as it is. It's kind of simple, and I like simple. So what I decided originally, I was just going to use this color base because I don't always feel that there needs to be a liner. I know that not everybody agrees with me, but I just don't always feel that it's necessary. Oh, hang on, I'm just making one more adjustment because it's bugging me here. Okay. So I will put a liner in it, and I thought I would just stamp the thank you inside the card. And here's the thank you. The pad was here, right? You all saw it. Here it is, okay. Does not take me long to lose something on this desk, even when it's right in front of me. Alright, so I'm just going to stamp thank you. So Blueberry Bushel is a color that we had back in like 2019 or 20, and it retired. Yes, I don't always like to put them right in the middle, but then again, if you put them in the middle or near the top, then it lessens your writing space, and it all depends on how much you really want to write. Okay, and luckily I had a lot of the paper left over, and I recently re-inked the ink pad. At one point, as soon as things retired, I was selling them, and then I realized that probably wasn't a good idea. I don't think I knew when I was first a new demonstrator, I don't think I realized that colors came back. I kind of thought once they were gone forever, but some do come back, and sometimes they come back years later. So I do not sell my ink anymore. When it retires, I hang on to it. So then we'll glue that on the inside. So last week we talked about it being a product-based class, and I guess this is. At one point I was thinking of adding another bundle to it or another stamp set to it, but I decided against it. And I also talked about the difference between your beginner, your casual, and your avid crafter. Oh, so now I remember what I wanted to show you on my iPad. We'll get to it, maybe. So I'm not really thinking that way today necessarily, but this could certainly be a beginner's card. You might want to say that the beginners wouldn't have the dyes, and maybe they wouldn't have the blends. They might have colored pencils, but just creating your own background using nothing but one or two stamps is nothing that a beginner couldn't do for sure. So that could be a beginner card. I'll just throw that out there. And this next one, again, even though this wasn't my intention for tonight's video, this next one certainly could be a casual crafter's card. So again, I started out with a card base, kind of typical size, the 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the center at 4 1/4. And I cased this card from a card that I made, but I know I must have cased that from somewhere too. I mean, sometimes I come up with ideas on my own, but this was quite a while ago, so probably not. And this was, the card that I cased was made with the blueberry set that I mentioned that was a Celebration item a number of years ago. So I used the Timber 3D embossing folder, whoops, here we go, which carried over from the 23-24 catalog and is in the catalog now, so that's great. It's a really nice one, just for some texture. So we're just going to put that on here, and then I realized I made a bit of a mistake, and I'll tell you what my mistake was and how easy it is to fix. Not a big deal. You really cannot, for the most part, stamp on something that has been embossed. You can color it with the blending brushes or with the sponge daubers, but you really can't stamp on it. You're just not going to get a very clean stamp. You won't get a particularly good image. So I realized after I ran it through the embossing folder that I had wanted to stamp this with a sentiment and then emboss it. And I forgot that step. So, not a big deal. I'm just going to remedy it by, I just realized my card's not lined up as well as I'd like it to be, so I'm trying to fix it. Usually you can make paper do what you want it to do. Alright, and you do want to use enough glue with something that's been embossed so that any buckling that happened during the embossing process or any bumps and whatnot, that all the glue gets in where it's supposed to go. So I just want to kind of rub that around and make sure it's okay. And I can always fix anything that might be popping up. So some people call this a 3-panel card, and some people call it something different. And of course there's a 4-panel card, but basically what it means is that you're putting panels across the front. So knowing that my card base was 4.25 by 5.5, and knowing that this piece here was 4 by 5.25, I kind of figured out what size my other pieces would need to be, and then I did some dry fitting to make sure, and I think that this works out pretty well. But you do want the spacing to be as even as you can get it to be. And then I took some of that DIY DSP that I told you that I made, and I cut some pieces out to be just 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around than the blue piece below it, and that's basically what I'm doing. So first I think I'll adhere these stamped pieces to the blueberry bushel cardstock pieces. And just in case you haven't seen me do this before, this little squishy thing that I'm doing is a way of shimmying the cardstock in the direction that you want it to go in if you've glued it and it looks a little off center. Because lifting it up and trying to move it is usually not very successful, but you can shimmy it while it's still wet, and that's what I do, and it tends to work fairly well. I'm not necessarily 100% accurate in getting it just the way I want, because sometimes until I pick it up and look at it, it looks fine, and then when I pick it up and look at it, it doesn't look so fine. There's just a little piece there that's hanging off the edge. We're going to cut that. Whoops, look what I just did, will you? Alright, so I'm going to pick up the glue on the other side of that paper and flip that over. See, it's just like no big deal. Whatever it is, it can usually be fixed. And then I think it might look kind of nice to have those popped up, so I'll get my dimensionals out again. Probably could use the mini dimensionals here as well, but to be very honest with you, I pretty much buy at least 4 packs almost every time I place an order, because between the use in my classes and my own personal use, I go through a lot of them, and the thought of waking up one day and realizing I have none and have to wait 2 weeks for an order to come, that's kind of scary. So I just sort of keep ordering them, so I tend to have a stockpile. Okay, and then I was thinking, since I've got some edges here, I'll just cut a couple of pieces off of these edges. And put those in the center. So don't ever throw away those edges because they're perfectly good and they work just as well. So I was able to get all 4 of those off, or all 5 of those off. Well, I got it off, but it didn't come off. There we go. Basically just come in at sort of an angle. And then I just check them to make sure they really are sticky, and I really did get them. And if you don't have fingernails, or if you have like the acrylic nails that are kind of thick, it makes it hard to pick things up, so it comes in handy for that. Okay, so I'm not going to press down. Make sure I'm right side up, because once you press these down, and I want to put it close to the top, because my sentiment and a little bow are going to go here. And I know that one's crooked. Right now I'm just looking for measurement, placement. Okay, so that one's definitely got to come over a bit. And I don't mind if there's a little more space in the middle. But I could bring the sides over just a tiny bit too. Okay, that one just needs to come up a tiny bit. That one's just giving me problems, isn't it? There we go. Okay, I can live with that. So now I'm going to give it a good press. And now if I try to peel them back up, I'm going to rip things. So you do kind of want to be sure. All right, and then I have my inside. And what did I do with my bow and my sentiment? I think I put them in a safe place. I hate when I do that. There they are. Okay. When I put things in safe places, they usually disappear forever. It's never good. Never good. Okay, and now I'm looking for my glue dots, which I just saw, and thought that I picked them up from where they didn't belong and put them where they belong. Yeah, okay. So I use the sentiment, sending you bunches of birthday wishes, and that's from this set. Probably going to want to use my dimensionals for that too. And then I just made a cute little double bow using the linen thread. And if you've got one sticking up and you like them both sticking down, you can fix that with the glue dot. If you don't mind that they're a little whatever, a little off kilter, that's okay too. I don't usually mind. And this was before I re-inked it, and it was very light, so that's why I re-inked it and did it again. Okay, I'm just going to put that a little bit off to one side. I do like things kind of off-center sometimes. I'm perfectly okay with that. I know some people don't like that too much, but it's okay for me. So I just rolled that up a little bit so it wouldn't stick out too much. And I get my take your pick tool again and lift that off with that. And then put it down. Let's see if I can get that out of the way and get it to stay down. I'm just going to put that there, and I'm going to just zhuzh that a little bit. And I think I like that long. I don't think I want to cut that. It might be a little tricky getting into the envelope, but for now I'm going to leave it. If it turns out to be a pain, then I'll trim it up. And then in here, I could stamp, but if I stamp, then I'm probably going to have to color again, and I don't know if I want to do that. I did make, here we go. I did make another one, and I cut it out by hand. That could go in here, but I wanted to show you something else with it too, so I'm not going to put it in here right now, but I might choose to do that later. So for now, I won't glue this in case I decide to stamp on it. All right, so there's card number 2. Now, number 3 is not really a card at all. Number 3, well, actually, I lied. Number 3 is 3 cards, and it could be 12 cards, and I know that I'm confusing you, right? But it's the idea of it is more about the box that we're making. So number 3 is a little gift box that you could give someone that would hold, actually it will hold 12 3x3 cards. Okay, and I didn't really want to go ahead and make 12 3x3 cards, so I made 3, but I have what I need to make more if I want to. So this box, which doesn't have a top because this will be the top, started out life as a, well, now I'm trying to find it, as a 4 3/4 by 10 sheet of cardstock, scored on the 10-inch side at 3 1/4, 4 3/4, 8 and 9 1/4. This box I did case from Julie DiMatteo. She makes a lot of 3D projects. And then you rotate it clockwise and score on the 4 3/4 side at 1.5 inches. Okay, so I didn't want to take you through all the steps of making the box, but I can post that. Now this is the top of the box, and the top of the box, well, now I can't find that. I know they should be all in the same place, right? But for some reason they're not. Oh, Roberta. Okay, well, I've got a ruler so I can tell you. The top of the box was, or is, 7 and, it was something weird, like it's not 7 1/4, I think it was 7 and like 5/16 or something like that, and 5 and 9/16. It's something with 16ths, and don't let that throw you because it's not as awful as it sounds. It really isn't. And then it got scored at 1/2 inch and 2 inches on all 4 sides. So when we start to fold those over, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. So this is the 1/2 inch score on every single side, all 4 sides, and then we have a 2 inch score on all 4 sides as well. So it looks a little strange. In fact, I was very sure that the measurements were wrong, but they're not. And then I don't know if you can see my X's there, but there are X's that tell me where I'm cutting away. So basically what we're doing is we're cutting away everything that surrounds the corners. So 3 little pieces here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to cut here at an angle and kind of miter that little section there. So I'm going to cut up here and cut that whole section off, just this little section that is a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to miter a little bit going that way. And then I'm going to miter a little bit going this way. So miter just means to cut at an angle and make a tab, because tabs are what helps you either glue the box together or it forms part of the lid and helps it hold it together. It all depends on what kind of a box you're making. But you almost always have to do a little bit of that mitering. Just make a little angled cut. Sometimes you make it more than other times. In this case, this little 1/2 inch part is actually going to go into the box itself as a way of making the box a little bit sturdier and also kind of a little bit cleaner looking. we're just cutting off everything that sits around the four corners. Okay, and I just kind of missed this one for some reason. Okay, then get those into my recycling bin. These pieces here are going to be also tabs, so they need to get mitered a little bit. So I'm angling and then cutting up, and then angling, and then doing the same thing here. I'm even having a hard time seeing it. I think I'm going to cut on this line first and then angle up. For me, that makes it a little bit easier to see. And then cut here. So you want to stop right at the fold line. You don't want to cut any of that away. Cut right up to that score line and then angle it so that it hits that corner of that score line without cutting into the next box. Now for this one we can use glue, or we can use a combination of glue and tear and tape. And there's a reason why you would use a combination, and I'll show you why. Okay, so the top is going to be a top that goes together like this and will sit on top of the box. All right. So the glue is actually going to go on what looks like the outside, and it is the outside, but it will become the inside. I hope that makes sense. But sometimes people put the glue on the wrong side because they assume that glue always goes on the inside for some reason. But in this case, it goes on the outside. It really does. And for here, I have no problem at all using the glue. This particular glue, the Tombow Mono multi-purpose glue, it dries very quickly. We're going to bring these corners together so that the edge of this panel comes right up to the edge of that one, and so that it's square. I don't mean the shape of a square, I mean square like plum. That's another word, I guess, that people who are into carpentry use. So same thing here, we're going to bring that up and make sure those two edges line up. If for some reason it goes over a tiny bit, you can trim it and no one will ever notice it. I'm saying that because I already noticed that I might be over a tiny bit. And the glue really does dry so fast that you don't have a lot of time to fix it. Once you've started pressing it down, it wants to stay there. Go that one on the outside. And put glue on the outside of that one. Alright, and then we'll push those back in, but one at a time I'm going to work on getting them lined up properly. There's that one, and now that one. So here's where you could use tear and tape if you wanted to, and I'll just show you why. So this time we really do want to put the glue, or the adhesive in this case, in the middle, in the inside rather. And I'll show you what the reason is. So what we're doing here is we're putting the tear and tape as close to the top as we can get it. And I didn't quite come over to the edge there, but you get the idea. If you don't like to tear it, and it really does tear, that's why it's called tear and tape. If you don't like to tear it, you can always cut it. And then again, we're going to get that as close to this outer edge as possible. If you end up with a piece hanging over the edge, you can just roll it into itself on the inside. And that's like almost perfect, and believe me, that wasn't a true measurement. All right, and then for the other two, I'm just going to show you that I could use glue as well, and I'll explain to you what they're for. So if I wanted to, I could use glue also. The glue is just as good. You know, some people say the tear and tape is good, it will last forever, and that's great. I don't know if people really keep the things we give them forever or not, but so what we're really doing is just folding those in. Okay, we're just folding them in, and because the paper is folded in such a way that it wants to pop back, that's why the tear and tape is kind of a neat idea, because then you don't have to do what I'm doing right here. But for the ones that have the tear and tape, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of glue right here too. We're going to take the release paper off the tear and tape, and then we're going to push that down in as well, and that's why we mitered it, so it fits in there properly. Although I think I didn't miter that one quite enough, I gotta tell you. Yeah, see, and the tear and tape really sticks, so I'm going to get my snips in here, and I am going to cut a tiny, tiny bit off of that. Not easy to do, but I'm going to try. Okay, because we don't want it to buckle. All right, and I can still use my bone folder just to get that to lay flat. And then we're going to take the release tape off of this one. And we're going to push that down. And the tear and tape is just going to hold right away, and we don't have to worry about waiting for it to dry. But like I said, the glue dries awfully fast anyway, so I don't usually worry about that. Okay, so now we've got our box ready to go, and we might just need to do what we need to do to just make it a little bit more sharp. And that box, she says hopefully, will fit right on top of that. And you do want it to be a snug fit, you don't want the top to fall off. So now we get to the DSP thing again. So if you're not into making your own DSP, then you might not want to cover this with DSP. You just might not want to. I did, however, make a couple of things. So here are my 3 cards. Let's just set that aside for a minute and get this out of the way. Here are my 3 3x3 cards. So did you know that Stampin' Up! Sells 3x3 envelopes? They do. So you've seen me making envelopes using the envelope punch board, and you've also seen me making envelopes just using a template, which can also happen. But we actually sell packages of 3x3 envelopes because 3x3 cards are very popular. They're great for gift inserts. I don't think you can mail them. I think 3x5 is the smallest, or 3x4.5. Check with your post office. I know I've posted it in the past. So there's those, and they're obviously 3x3. And then I should have here 3, and I think I actually have 4 because I was going to make some more cards. And so these are just 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around. So there's our cards. Now the only other thing is that I didn't fill in so much, so some of them to me look like they have a little too much white space. Again, I'm not worried about that because you could put a sentiment there, but you could also find some other stamp. We have stamps with the splotches and whatnot. You could find some other stamp that you could just use to fill in those spaces if they bug you. Because I made this myself, the DSP, it's not particularly dimensional, but again, one way or the other way might just appeal to you more. So we're going to put one of those in there. And then here's another one, and we'll put that in there. I did not get any envelopes, and I did not make any envelopes. And this box, like I said, which I got the inspiration from Julie DiMatteo, she said that this box would hold 12 3x3 cards and envelopes. So I made it bigger because I thought if I were going to give this to somebody as a gift, I would certainly want to give them more than 3 cards. So that was my reasoning for thinking that I should make it bigger. Otherwise, I was thinking of sizing it down, but then I decided against it. But I have made in the past some 3x3 card holders that weren't a box that necessarily closed. They might have been a folder, I think, or something like that, that would hold maybe 3 or 4 cards. So you can make it any size you want just by changing the dimensions. Okay, so picture that there's extra cards and extra envelopes in there, but they fit right in there quite nicely with a little bit of room left over. And I still had all of this left over. This is an extra 3x3 one that I'll use to make another card at some point. This, like I certainly could put, I think this was the one I measured that looked pretty good. I could put that on the front instead of designer series paper, but let's say you didn't want to do that at all. You could have possibly stamped just the stamps on this, tone on tone, blueberry bushel on blueberry bushel. And if you didn't even want to go to that trouble, you could just take one of these and put it on the front. And that would be very nice too. You would just have to remember, if you're going to glue it down, that you have to put it lower so that it can be seen. Or you could put it here where you just glue it on the top and it comes off when you take the top off. So I'm trying to picture that and hold it down with my thumb. Of course, it's not cooperating. Oh, good grief. Really? Okay, like I said, you want it to be snug, maybe not quite that snug. So it's more snug because we put these parts in here, for sure. But you could certainly have that way. You could have it this way. You could use this. So this is all from the same 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I did get quite a lot out of it. But if you wanted to put designer series paper here and here and here, some people put it on the back too. I don't even bother. And then if you wanted to put it here and here and here and here and here, well, there wouldn't have been enough for that. Now, there might have been had I not made this card, and had I not made that one, I stamped separately, but had I not made this card and had I not made these 3 cards in here, there might have been enough to do that. So you might have had to make extra. I'm going to put this one on the front, and I'm not going to do anything with the rest of it. Now, when I get my order, which of course is coming tomorrow, it never fails that my order comes the day after I do a Facebook Live. I must decide to place my orders on the same day all the time, and I don't do that on purpose because my orders seem to always come on a Thursday. So I don't know what that's all about, but... And just for the record, for anyone who's keeping track, my order is coming in way less than 2 weeks since I placed the order. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm not complaining because usually it's quite a bit more than 2 weeks. All right, and then what you could do here, I'm going to have to fiddle with that and make it work a little bit better. What you could do here is to put a little circle here that would only be glued to the top that could have your greeting on it. You could decorate it some more. You could keep cutting out these things and at least decorate the front. Whatever you want. I'm almost thinking, to be honest with you, that I might like the top to this box if it wasn't so deep. So where we made that one score 2 inches, maybe I would only make this like 1.5 inches, and then I would have to cut the whole dimension of the whole thing down. I think I'd be perfectly happy if it just only went like that far down and left me more room here and was shallower. You have to let me know what you think, but I would be happier with that, I think, because here you're covering up so much of the paper. Now, if it was regular designer series paper, there would be more showing. I don't know. I'll have to wait until my paper comes tomorrow, and maybe I'll redo the box with a smaller, a shallower lid, and with the actual designer series paper. I'll use the not the in color, but the color family designer series paper. Shoo! I'm having a hard time with my words today, I tell you. Okay, so here's what we have. And listen, when I say that I'm going to post the measurements to something, if a few days has gone by and it looks like I've forgotten, don't hesitate to remind me. I've got a lot going on and I forget stuff. So absolutely do not hesitate to remind me, okay? So we've got the gift box, which, like I said, well, there you go. All of a sudden it's working better. The gift box, and we've got the 3 or potentially more cards, and we've got this card. You see, when things flop up, that's where I use my little gem thing for, because it holds it down so it's not flopping around. And then we've got this card, which definitely could be a beginner's card. So that is all of the cards that we've made tonight. I also need to ask a favor. If any of the ladies who attend my Coffee and a Card class ever take pictures of the cards that they've made, like maybe when they get them home later that day or at some point before they mail them out, let me know, because for some reason I did not take any pictures of the cards we made in the July Coffee and a Card, and I've already mailed them all off. And I really like to have pictures of them, and somehow I don't know where my head was, but somehow I just didn't do it. So if you were at Coffee and a Card in July and you took pictures of your cards, I would love to have copies of those pictures. Please and thank you. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me tonight, and I will see you 1 week from tonight. Have a great evening and a great rest of your week.